Hey guys, just live on Facebook. Come on, Facebook. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back here with another video. As usual, nowadays I'm live on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully in January, from January the 1st from New Year, I'm going to have, all being well, I'm going to set up my own TikTok account as well. And if there's any other video sharing platforms you can recommend, please let me know. But anyway, welcome to, I was going to say the third. Unfortunately, it's only the second part. I've been sleeping quite a lot and trying to avoid distractions and that kind of thing, and remember things, and my laptop been running a bit slow, which has been frustrating. But anywho, welcome to the second part of my list on the M.K.S Dyslexic Billionaires Network. I put M.K.S in brackets to show it's my idea, and I would love to be the founder of it, or at least co-founder, and the only non-billionaire member, and also to trademark protect these ideas. Hence I put brand, I put trademark in the title, I think, if I remember to it. So anyway, and also I put it as brand or team in brackets, because I'd love for it to work as a brand, a team, network, collaborative, cooperative, think tank, and all sorts of things like that. A group, if you like. Sometimes I like to say group, I don't know why, the group. But anyway, as I say, this is part 2. I did want to wake up early. I went to sleep a bit, and then I wanted to wake up a bit earlier to say I wish all the Italian teams, it's a bit late for today, but I wish all the Italian teams playing in Europe, I don't know why I put Europe in speech box, but Italian teams playing in Europe and internationally at the moment in Europe, all the best. I wish the Italian national team the best, and I wish all the Italian teams playing in like the Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, and competitions like that, World Club Cup, Super Cup, and things like that in the future. Hopefully, all the best. Can't make it whether cold or hot. And I love 4 Dyslexics, including Dyslexic Billionaires, and as I jokingly say, mere millionaires, supporting them, as well as Dyslexics generally. I've got loads of dreams on football, but I'm going to try to focus back onto the network. So these are pointers number 11 to 20. I hope you enjoy them, and let me know what you think, and if you have any thoughts and ideas of your own on this group, or whatever you're going to call it. So yeah, whether you disagree with me or agree with me on any points I make, and as ever, welcome your opinions and that kind of thing, alternative opinions and whatnot. And here goes. So number 11, I have to think of, and the number 11 has change, and I'm sure this would, if this got set up, I'm sure it would change the world, hopefully for the better. I like to think. For instance, it would inspire dyslexics to believe in ourselves. Also, hopefully, it would change the image and the perception of dyslexia. Reminds me, actually, when I think about it, of the CODPAST, which I talked about yesterday, I think, or recently at least, which says like some people think of dyslexics as slow, or some people think of dyslexia and they think slow or whatever, but we think innovative ideas, people, imagination, creativity, and that kind of thing, or whatever. So yeah, changing the perceptions of dyslexia, showing what we can do. Even as I said in part 1, and as I said in the past, to be honest, even just having a Dyslexic Billionaires list, I think, would change people's perceptions, maybe, and really change the perception of dyslexia. Number 12, as I said before, I dream that this would be worth over $1 trillion in the future, as a group, as a brand, or whatever. And maybe in the future, again, I've said before that they might be dyslexic trillionaires as well. But once you get to that stage, I think you should give most of your money away. I think it was Andrew Dale Carnegie who said, Andrew Dale Carnegie, or how we pronounce his name, Carnegie, I think it is, who said, if a person dies rich, it's a disgrace to them. And in other words, like, they should give their money away as much as they can and not be greedy, I think he was trying to say. So yeah, I know, I understand that it does sound like a greedy idea. And I suppose initially when I came up with the idea, as I said in part 1, it was for egotistical and selfish and greedy purposes to an extent. Although even then I wanted to give a percentage away to charity, but I wanted to be super rich myself back then. But yeah, I suppose there is still some ego, if that's the right way of putting it, if that's the right word. as in I would be quite proud to set something up like this, even if it required me to get help from other people. As I say, your network is your net worth. Try to the right order, not good as but although they do say dyslexics are supposedly right-brained, as someone put it, I'm glad dyslexics have the right brain. But he was a lot more quick and witty than me. But moving on, I think that covers everything for point. As I say, I'm sure it would inspire a lot of dyslexics. In part 3, all being well, hopefully I'll remember, in point number 21, maybe to talk about the history of this idea. Maybe try and remember where it came from, how it developed, how it changed over time, and things like that, and that kind of thing. Which I suppose I've briefly covered, but yeah, hopefully I'll talk about that in point number 21. As I say, it goes 21 again. Already given a bit away there, but moving on, number 13, as I say, from a selfish point of view, I pretty much always say I'd look for this network as well as dyslexics generally to benefit Italian football teams like AC Monza, Inter Milan. I meant to say Milan and Torino, but Italian teams generally, AC Monza, Torino, Inter Milan, AC Milan, and all the rest. I checked on the football score, and when I checked, it was 0-0. But hopefully Inter can sneak a late goal against Liverpool. I would say, one of the things I was thinking about, a little bit of a side note, again, I'm not going a bit away from the initial topic of the video, but as I've been doing recently, but as my brain goes off in all sorts of different directions, sometimes I have to say what brain, but on a serious note, maybe some people, sorry, going back to the point about the Dyslexic Billionaires and how it could inspire people, maybe some people could say, actually, I don't relate to those people because I don't see myself as being able to get anywhere near that. I'm struggling to pay the bills or whatever, unfortunately. I thought I'd say that for point number 13, a negative point, but hopefully that can be changed, but I'll talk more about that maybe a bit later. But yeah, I love to see, from a selfish point of view, I'd love to see the Italian team, the Italian national team, perform a miracle and get to the World Cup, and not only get to it, but even win it. In fact, I think if Italy qualified, I'd probably go to America to see the World Cup if I can next year. But I suppose I wouldn't really want to go if they haven't qualified. But I'm not going to be off topic, I'll say. But I'd love to see the Italian national team do as well as possible in World Cups. I'm not too bothered about Euros, the Olympics, and certainly not friendlies or other competitions. I'm only really bothered about the World Cup when it comes to the Italian national team. But when it comes to Italian club teams, I'm not really bothered about who wins in Italy itself. I'm only bothered about winning the Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, World Club Cup, hopefully in the Super Cup, and that kind of thing. Italian teams winning those sort of trophies, which reminds me of the point I was going to make, which is I know Italian teams can be rivals to each other, but I wish that when they played a non-Italian team, or even Latin teams generally, that when they play non-Latin teams or non-Mediterranean teams like German or English, or I was going to say Spanish, but that is Mediterranean. I have to mention Spain is a bit of a dilemma because it is a Mediterranean nation. I only support Italy because I think I look Italian, but I suppose it could be the same with Spain. And I sort of have a bit of a soft spot for Spain, but their teams are ahead of Italian teams, and they're our main competition, I guess, along with the EPL, along with the English teams. I think we're closer to the amount of trophies that English teams have won. Basically, I want to see Italian teams win the most trophies out of European teams. Because European teams are normally known as the best because they have the money, I guess. But talking about money, I guess I'd love to see, from a selfish point of view, I'd love to donate to and sponsor and invest into, and why not, Italian teams myself, and I'd love to encourage others, including a Dyslexic Billionaires Network, hopefully, to do similar. I'd love to see Italian football being able to provide good PR and a good ROI, return on investment, and that kind of thing. So yeah, from a selfish point of view, I'd love to benefit Italian teams and see Italian football do as well as possible. And I know, say, Inter Milan and AC Milan will be rivals with each other. They might even hate each other when they play against each other, but when they play against Liverpool or Arsenal or Tottenham or whatever it might be, they represent Italy, and I think they should support each other and put their differences aside. I wish that AC Milan supporters would have supported Inter when they got to the final against PSG and vice versa. I was just as happy seeing AC Milan win the World Club Cup as Inter Milan and vice versa. And I love to watch those videos back to remind me of the good old days of Italian football. Or even at those times we weren't doing that well, but those were sort of a dip in the pan or whatever they call it. But anyway, moving on that note, number 14, I wish Italian football would get rid of, or at least limit, like prejudice, racism, and hooliganism within itself. Ideally, get rid of those things from a town for one. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. This idea this group, if it got set up, would solve a lot of the problems I face and a lot of the problems the world faces. I think hopefully investing in great things like robots that can make the world a better place, AI, gold, silver. Although I suppose that wouldn't necessarily make the world a better place in the case of the latter, but we could develop technology, this group, that makes the world a better place, hopefully, but also helping people in developing nations, including those with dyslexia, and helping disadvantaged people, generally tackling homelessness and things like that. So a lot of the profits could be used for doing a lot of good stuff. On that note, I'd love to know what you think are some good problems that need to be, well, some difficult problems rather, that would be good to solve. Rather, I can think when they say in football, when you have so many great players, a wealth of talent, they say it's a good problem to have. There's such a thing, and I suppose problems give opportunities as well, which is where most of the wealthy people make their money, like solving problems. A lot of people see problems, like myself, I see problems as a negative thing, but they are opportunities, as Jack Ma says. You should see problems as opportunities. Where there's a problem in one area, there's opportunities on the other. And I think AI is an example of that. Like, AI is going to be bad for the majority, I'm afraid to say, unless it can be made ethically and all that kind of thing, which I hope it will. But for some, like few, it's going to be a really good thing, a really good opportunity for those who learn it and use it and that kind of thing, just like the Industrial Revolution and what it's given us. But for those who don't use it, they'll get left behind. Those who are technically illiterate, like myself, will get left behind. But yeah, people who go to school and study the old ways and get a job and all that kind of thing will probably be left behind. I mean, I'm not saying people should skive school or not learn anything or whatever. It's about learning things that you're going to use and all that kind of thing. But I think if dyslexics mentored each other, I would have loved to say that in point number 12, but I've just thought about that, or just remember that. But if we mentored each other and support each other, if this group, say for instance, mentored, maybe that's part of what Dyslexic Billionaires could do, and as I jokingly say, mere millionaires, if they mentored other people using some of their time, which is one of the biggest things they could give away. Someone says the best thing you give away is your time, energy, and that kind of thing. If they mentored other dyslexics, we would learn a lot better than we would learn at school. I love to create like independent schools or in investment platforms and things like that. Solving problems. As I think of point number 14, solving problems. And before I move on to point number 15, I just wanted to say as well, like I was thinking about when people talk about time management, and sometimes they say if you can pick a task in the morning that would make all the other things more easier, then you should do that task. And I suppose it would have a domino effect, or it'd be like bowling, it would knock down the rest of the things. So if you get that first thing with momentum, it will help the rest of your goals. So if you think about bowling, if you knock the first pin down, or whatever you call it, or whatever, it could knock the rest down to make life a lot easier. But yeah, so this would make my life a lot easier, as an example. I was thinking of, like, if I could set this up, then one thing, people might believe in me more, and the second thing is would have the funds to invest in a lot of things. I know I say I'm not materialistic, but I think money can make things happen. As Richard Branson says, money's there for making things happen. And someone talked about time management. I was going to say in point number 15, and maybe I will. I'll say in point number 15. Point number 15. Someone said Earl Nightingale was his mentor, and I think it was Bob Proctor, and he said whenever Earl Nightingale said, would you like to come for lunch, and he said whenever Earl Nightingale wanted to meet him, he would always want to meet him. He would always drop what he's doing and meet him, and he said, you seem to be so good at managing time, how do you do it? And Earl Nightingale said, what on earth are you talking about? You can't manage time. It can't be managed. I merely manage activity. So he said, I get a notebook out and I write 6 things, or a piece of paper basically, and I write 6 things that I'm going to do each day. And then if I don't get them done, say if I only get 3 done, I won't add another 6. I'll just add another 3 to that. So each day I have 6 things which I focus on, working towards those things. So yeah, I thought example of that, and as an example. So if I got this set up one day, then preferably ASAP, preferably yesteryear, so to speak. But if I got this set up, then it would make other things a lot easier, like having more funds to support other projects, especially helping others and that kind of thing, benefiting my 5 causes. But I realise I keep going off track of the original thing, but I suppose it is kind of on the point of what Dyslexic Billionaires Network would do. Number 16, I wanted to talk about how it would run, like my ideals about how it would run, like the process, like meeting up possibly once a week or once a month, once a fortnight maybe, or whenever's best for Dyslexic Billionaires. Obviously, billionaires want to be very busy. People are busy, and billionaires are probably the most busy of anyone. So, but I suppose you can delegate tasks to give yourself more time, to give yourself more freedom and flexibility. So in many ways, they're probably, some of them are if they automate tasks and automate time and work with people and utilize people and money to put that to work and put them to work respectively, then you can have more time to do things like spend your time with your family or go on a holiday or whatever it is you want to do. I'm guessing, having never been a billionaire, unfortunately, I would have to say I'm not 100% sure, but I'm second guessing. I mean, I say unfortunately because I know I said I'm not materialistic, but it would be really cool to be a billionaire, because then I could give my money away to town football and those things I talk about. But I'd love to know what you think about what are some ethical causes we could support, or what do you think about the brand idea and this network as a brand, and what do you think are some of the things it could do? I mentioned that in order to join, other than myself as a founder, everyone else would have to be both a billionaire and dyslexic in this case. Not sure how you could prove either of those things, to be fair, but they would have to have a net worth of at least $1 billion or more. Obviously, at least $1 billion, I say. The more the merrier. And they would also have to be dyslexic. But it would still perhaps have investors, shareholders, or whatnot. But to be a main member, a regular member, you would have to, like, to go to the events and all that kind of thing. You would have to be both dyslexic and a billionaire. But I'd love to sit in those events myself, so I'm sure there's loads I'd learn about how to seek investment, how they think, how billionaires think, and whatnot. How they think differently, how they manage their time, how they manage their activities, how much of it's smart work, how much of it's hard work, or things like that. I'd love for dyslexic billionaires to teach people like me. And I think we'd learn a lot better than you would learn at school, in my opinion. I think school doesn't teach you a lot of great stuff. I know it's a bit controversial. I think school is important, like if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, solicitor, or whatever, and that kind of thing. But in other areas, I think, like risk taking or whatever, it's different. Some people say being successful in business is like the opposite to what they teach you in school. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but again, having never been financially successful myself, to be honest, but I love the irony of setting this up, as I talked about. But it's like some say, what school forgot to teach you. I've seen a YouTube channel which says, what school forgot to teach you their commission, perhaps. But on a serious note, yeah, if you check out their channel, you could type up M.K.S sent me here, or my location sent me here, but then they should pay me 10% commission or whatever. But again, on a serious note, sorry, I don't think school forgot to teach us those things. I think that school is ran by the elites, by the super rich, and they want to dumb down education, teaching and training in a very clever way. I think that was opening my tea because it was Tuesday, given my patterns and that kind of thing. But I think they do it in a very clever way, so they make us smart enough to be an employee, but not smart enough to be someone who can think for ourselves or whatever. That's my opinion. Number 17, another thing about school is they ban imagination. Most dyslexics, I suppose, have good imagination, creativity, ideas, out of the box thinking, that kind of thing. I'm sure most of us do as dyslexics. Some don't, I'm sure. But I know there's an entrepreneur called Theo Fetus who's on the Dragon's Den, or was on the Dragon's Den in Britain, who says he's not creative at all and he's never come up with an original idea. So I suppose it doesn't affect everyone the same. I would have put one together, assumedly, and thought that's why he does. That's why dyslexics do well, because of ideas, like creativity, imagination, out of the box thinking or whatever. But he just takes other people's ideas and tweaks them and improves them. And someone says, you copy others or steal from others, and he says, I like to be inspired by others very clever with this language perhaps, but we'd all have different strengths. It reminds me of the X-Men. We all have different strengths. Maybe it could be the S-Men, or Shenton, or whatever, but not the Yes-Men. Or maybe not. But yeah, I'm sure we do a lot of good stuff. But yeah, imagination is one thing that's sort of banned in schools, it seems like. Well, maybe not, but it's not encouraged as much like schools where subjects where you sit down, shut up, and do what you're told, like maths, English, and things like that. I mean, I know you can write creative stories and things like that. There are some creative sessions, like drama as well as another thing, but even in English you can write creative stories, but it's more sort of following instructions and doing what you're told and that kind of thing, so not taking too much risks, rather than disobeying the rules and things like that. I don't like to break laws, but I do like to break the rules. So yeah, as long as they don't make it legislature. And I'd love to have less laws. I'd love to support libertarianism, so there's less laws that people have to break and that kind of thing, if you like. But yeah, schools I think are very difficult for people with dyslexia because we think differently, we think outside the box, obviously, as I say, that same thing, I guess. But things like imagination, creativity, ideas, things like that, thinking differently again, are forbidden. But organisations like Made by Dyslexia, the Yale Centre for Dyslexia and Creativity, the Dyslexic Adventure, and others talk about the strengths we have. Imagination is one of those. Number 18, as I say, once again, I'd love to know what you think are some ethical causes, some good causes that you think, if this group got founded, should be supported. If you let me know in the comments, either on Facebook or YouTube, or preferably both, about causes you would love me to, for me to support, or that you think should be supported generally, I would, I'll take those on board, and I think that's quite interesting. And if I ever did set up this network and other things like that, I would donate to those causes if I agree with them. I mean, I've got to admit, I don't want to make any promises. Like, I'm not a big fan of anything that's militarism. I know it's not very popular of me, but so I suppose I'm not a populist, or whatever you call it, populist, or whatever in that regard. But if it was something like something that was military or whatever, I wouldn't support that. But I don't know, like I said, helping the homeless, helping disabled people, in a way, whether they're military personnel or ex-military personnel or not. But I'd probably prioritise civilians. But if you help the homeless and you help the disabled, I guess you would be helping veterans or whatever, because unfortunately many of them become disabled or whatever. And these wars that people send them to, whilst calling them heroes and backstabbing them and calling them, apparently Henry Kissinger said, well, some people give him a very flattering nickname, but I won't say it right now. But he said that military personnel are dumb animals that we use for wars or whatever. So people might pretend to support the troops, but they don't always. But yeah, I probably support things like helping the homeless, helping disabled people. I suppose I have my own ideas, but maybe someone could put a suggestion that might be like, oh, I've never heard of that condition, or I've never heard of that charity, or whatever. Maybe charities that you trust to distribute that money more ethically and make sure it gets to those who need it the most. And on that note, I think the giving pledge, hopefully I might mention this in part 3 and 4 as well, and trickle 4, part 3 and trickle 4, but the giving pledge says that, sorry, I was thinking the giving pledge should be targeted to help like tech for Africa, for instance, or even STEM generally in Africa, but especially tech for Africa and that kind of thing. But moving on, number 19, on that note, as I say, I'd love for the Dyslexic Billionaires Network to support things like projects that support African programmers, software developers, coders, app creators, robotic engineers, or whatever, people who build robots and apps and all sorts of things like that, AI and that kind of thing, AI for Africa and that kind of thing. I love to write to tech companies, again, a little bit of a side note, but away from the Dyslexic Billionaire stuff, or even the dyslexia stuff, I'd love to write to companies like Microsoft, Apple, IBM, Oracle, and other tech companies, or even companies generally, tea brands and whatnot, to say, could you support tech for Africa? And number 20, on that note, again, a little bit off topic, but so maybe the Dyslexic Billionaires Network, if and when it ever got up and running, could fund things like this, like tea projects, where like people go and drink tea at the library or local centre or whatever, or mosques or churches or wherever it might be, and the money gets donated to like they pay £1, say in Britain, or $1 in America, or whatever, or a couple of dollars, or whatever it might be, and that money gets donated to help tech for Africa. Again, I'd love to know what you think. I did go all over the place, but I did struggle to think about the process. But hopefully, I'll cover the process and all that in parts 3 and 4, especially in part 4. And on that note, I'm out. Peace out. Going to make another cup of tea.